Hello. Today I want to talk about the emotions of lines. So, when I've been riding on the bus, occasionally, I've been reading a book about composition. Let me find a name for you because it's actually a pretty good uh, book on composition. Sorry about this. I can't even find it. Oops, wrong one. I'll get that name in. Okay, it's just called Pictorial Composition. Um, I will find the author at some point in time. But the book mentioned a lot of things. Everyone always talks about shape language in terms of like a circle. Let me draw a better circle. Of like circle, of like a triangle, and a square. And I feel like everyone always tries to like pigeonhole all shape language into that. But I think the main thing they're trying to say is like the roundness of a ball or like a circle sphere, the sharpness, like the sharp points you get when it comes to a triangle. And a square looks like very sturdy, not as threatening as a triangle, but more sturdy than say a circle. But maybe not under water pressure. But I always felt like lines themselves carry an emotion with them. So when I draw a line, I think of it like kind of like, well, a bit of a curved line. I feel like, being a human, unless you're using a ruler, I feel like whenever you hand draw a line, there's always some amount of curvature to that line. So I always find it to be a little bit less threatening than, say, uh, a different type of drawn line. Like, I'm going to draw a line right now using a tool. It's just a line tool, and it kind of like, it pretty much clamps the starting point and the ending point. So, like, you see this point here and the point here. It uses an algorithm to pretty much draw, well, in this case, because I'm drawing digitally, it's pixels, but if you were to, say, use a roller, you could do the same effect. And you would do that for stuff that you wouldn't mind looking like, let's say, a room, something mechanically cut. Lines like these do serve a purpose. Don't let me sway you any ways. But I feel like they look a lot less human than a line like this. Because the other thing is, I have pressure stabilization on. One quality about a lot of lines that you draw may be the amount of pressure that you lay down. So if you look at my line here, it's clear that like I started with less pressure, and it's kind of like I had the most pressure about in this area, and I kind of ended with less pressure. Kind of like teetered out. That's the right word. So yeah, I feel like human drawn lines kind of have this very special quality to them, even though I'm drawing digitally on a drawing tablet. Yeah, I think the human aspect does carry an emotion, and I think it could be a lot less threatening than that. So there are various other types of lines. Like there are, I would say, like a ribbon line. Kind of like that. And the purpose of like a ribbon line, well, you're trying to represent a ribbon with two lines, and like these lines, like they look a lot softer, or I don't know if that's the best word to say. They look soft, right? And now I'm putting other lines to show the how the ribbon bends in 3D space. Like it's coming towards us more. Like it was away, then it kind of folded closer to us, then it kind of folded a little bit back again, but not as far as that segment of the ribbon. So I found that, like, let's say you want to draw something a bit sharp, right? Let's say I wanted to draw like ocean waves or something like that. Well, look here, even though I'm not drawing a triangle, you still have like these points. I think I did a really bad job drawing sharp points, I should have been more careful. Yeah, I think that's a good sharp one. But I think when you're just using lines, you can emit a lot of emotion through them without having to make a complete shape. So I think like every line you do does carry some type of meaning and emotion to it. And I would say that also really depends on the subject matter that you're drawing too. So another thing, so I covered straight lines here and kind of like a bit more curved lines. Well, you could just as well draw like regular curves. You could also make them a bit more extreme, more extreme, more extreme. And I think these lines, like in my mind, they tend to carry like a roller coaster thing. Like like you're starting here, going to the top, where you have like the most tension, and then you're going over the roller coaster here. I should have made like arms. Yeah, like I'll do that. Something like that. So yeah, I think like even like this, there's like a lot of tension. Like I'm thinking of like a rubber band, but well, I was really thinking of a roller coaster. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna change the definition there. So like you could still get I feel like lines like these, they could be a bit stressful. I think if I was not to like draw this person coming over it in a roller coaster, I think that like it would kind of be like leaving someone in suspense, because like is it a roller coaster? Is it a rubber band that's about to snap? Uh, Personally, like I tend to think about the pain of a rubber band snapping back at you. Like if you try to stretch it out too far, it could break and kind of like whack you. Um, I didn't mean to make that sound effect. I kind of just did it without thinking. So you have a rubber band, then you kind of stretch it, then you stretch it even more, then it like whacks, and then you have two pieces of a rubber band, and you really can't do much with two pieces of a rubber band, but if you know it, you can kind of think like what's more relaxing. Like I think a rubber band like that is a lot more relaxing than putting it out as far as you can until it hits you. So people would always talk about triangles and the point. Well, I showed the waves, the ocean waves. Like if you ever have been on like a large lake or the ocean, when it's calm, you usually have waves from the wind. And usually the waves are, well, they're usually soft. If you really look at them, they're not too tense. But if a storm was coming, well, they kind of get a bit more, they kind of peak more. And if they're really big, you'll get like real big waves in which you kind of have this, this cresting pattern in which it's kind of like these spikes to come at you. Not spikes, but just, they crest. I believe they follow a sine wave. So, I could even tie that back into the example of the straight line, in which, like in math, plotting 2 points between like A and B, it'll be like a straight line. Then you may get more round lines. Then in some points in time, you could have like more like extreme sharp lines like that. And in my opinion, whenever I think of lines like these, I usually think of like statistics that I have to report, and I get really stressed out. I don't know why, but sometimes you can get everyone wants continuous growth, and but like, oh no, the stock market crashed. Say goodbye to your house. Stuff like that. So, and eventually it comes back up, but never. Well, I mean, I don't want to say any more with that, but you get the point. you start off with a line like that, or it could even be like that. Okay, so regarding the square, I really didn't cover the square so much, because pretty much what I did with all of the lines here is I kind of broke them apart from the three shapes that are always talked about. So when I think of a shape like a square, well, I tend to think of like an edge of something before I would think of a square. And usually when you have an edge, I feel like that's like adding some type of order to whatever it is you're working on. Now, I guess you don't normally see just like an edge in any context. I'm trying to think of like a good way to explain it, but I would say that like it's not the best support, but it kind of looks like some type of support. I keep thinking of like a T-square, and you have like edges, and it could be useful if you need to like clamp or limit yourself to some type of area, or if you're trying to draw very straight lines, it could be helpful to do that. So I think it does. I think like a corner does offer some protection, much like the emotion of a square. So I think with all of these, it really boils it down to like sharpness, safety, and like continuous things. So thinking back to the circle again, when I think of like organic things, like very often, if you look at anything organic, like a bug, a plant, a person, and even if you like look at like the anatomy of people, or if you think of like the bones, people don't have sharp bones. I mean, I know there's always a case in which like your bone may like develop a burr in some case, and then you do have a sharp part in your body, which is actually kind of bad. Then you usually need like some type of surgery or something like that. Like if you ever hear of people needing knee surgery, I think that's usually like when they develop some type of burr, like if they're having knee pain every time they move it, something like that. So like organic things tend to fall into some type of rounded shape. Like you're not going to see a point on a person unless they break a bone, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Do not Google image that. But sharp. You rarely see that unless like something like a fractured bone or something like that. And when I think of squares, I think of like safety, shelter. Although you may not always find that in nature. Like I bet you can find that in nature in some way. Personally, I think of like a cave. I mean, I guess all caves can be rounded by water in some sense, but I think, when I think of a square like that, I keep thinking of like a house of some degree and like shelter. And the funny thing about that is, in this really crude example of a house, I pretty much just combined a square with a triangle. So, it's just, everything's just so related to it all. And but do know that I think there are certain emotions to lines that could be a bit more calming to people. Like if you were looking to do anything calming, I think you're always going to want to go for a smooth line, and you're going to want to avoid sharp points of anything. But if you're looking for something like inorganic, to give an emotion that may be a bit non-relaxing, then you would go with sharp things. Like, okay, for an example, like a warning sign, right? If you ever see like caution signs or something like that, they're usually like red, or they're like in a triangle. Because I think the purpose of something like that is to bring attention, and it's not meant to be cuddly and friendly. It's meant to it's meant to grab your attention. And the one thing that I always think of is like a stop sign. So, a stop sign is, would it be an octagon? Oh, I feel like I should know this. Shape of a stop sign. So, like, a stop sign, oh, it's not, yeah, it's an octagon. So, A stop sign, it's an octagon. I'm not going to be able to draw a good octagon. A stop sign is an octagon. Well, I always wonder why they didn't use something more like that. Usually when you see a sign with a triangle, it more has to do with like caution. But like with a stop sign, I feel like you're kind of getting, well, you're kind of like combining once again in a different way a square with a triangle. So I think it also really helps get your attention. Like I think you wouldn't be able to do the same emotional, you wouldn't be able to get the same quality, and I don't think you'd be able to attract the same attention if you were to use a stop sign that was round. Because, what a stop sign, you need to stop. And I think if it was round, like, you won't notice it. And for some reason, I want to say there are signs out there. For some reason, I think that they're for belts or something like that. I don't know what the meaning of it is, but like orange belt, blue belt, I don't know. It may not even be for people to look at. I can't remember what it means, but that's the funny thing. Like, no one remembers what it is. See, um, so do know that every line you draw does have an emotion. If you make sharp points, I feel like it causes the eye to stop. I feel like most people are primed to treat it with caution and to stop, and it could like break the entire flow of a drawing if you were to like include it. Um, so yeah, I think those are the main things I wanted to talk about with emotion. If you have another idea of lines that can kind of attract different emotion, please comment below in the comments. The only other thing that I could think of is using different line weight to give more emotion to a line. So if I were to say draw a line and add more line weight, I feel like if people are looking at this line, they're going to look at this segment calmly, and they're going to look at this line with more detail because I kind of put more line weight on it, and I think it kind of captures more attention. So I may even have to revisit these concepts in the future because I think there's just so much more I could explore with it, but there's just a lot that I don't know. So yeah, thanks for listening. If you like the video, please like it, and if you like my channel, please subscribe. Thanks for listening. Bye.